England has been a leader in this field, and Flanders also had kind of an industry here, but most of it was still a pre-industrial area. Then the second is the early factory phase between 1770 and 1820. Was the proto-factories, grow in number and size, largely powered by water wheels, with a few powered by steam engines. The focus continued to be on the textile production. So we were using water power, and steam power to basically to power the textile industry. Then between 1820 and 1880, the steam-driven factory phase involved the widespread diffusion of steam engines. So we only saw it in the textile industry, but then it started to diffuse to other factories and in transportation, including railways and ships, as well as substantial expansion of the number and amount of goods produced in factories. So this is really the first industrialization phase. Then the science-led industrial phase between 1880 and 1975 was characterized by inventions derived from scientific laws, which provided a material foundation for massive economic growth. Key inventions included steel, chemicals, internal combustion engines that we are still working on, and electrical motors. So that is the second. We can say that the steam-driven factory phase is more or less driven from England, and the science-led industrial phase was more or less led by the United States.
When is the Industrial Revolution?
Industrial Revolution is we will come back to that when we look at the video, but an Industrial Revolution is basically a combination of
You're talking about the last stage?
Right. So there's the first industrial revolution. That's the one between 1820 and 1880, and then from 1880 to 1975, that's the second industrial revolution. And now I would like to focus on the third industrial revolution, what it will look like globally, and what the impacts will be of that industrial revolution on society as a whole, and how we are organizing our society, and what impact that will have. The information technology. The last quarter of the 20th century saw the emergence of the information and computer technology revolution. The development of products and processes that rely on managing the movement of electrons from communication and analysis. If mechanization provided means to extend and magnify a human brain, information technology offers the means to extend and magnify the workings of the brain. So this is really it's not really a movement of things. The ICT revolution is the management of information. That was the focus. ICT was a way to store and distribute information, and not so much things. Now comes the second machine age. Computers and other digital advances are doing for mental power the ability to use our brains to understand and shape our environments. What the steam engine and its descendants did for muscle power, they are allowing us to blow past previous limitation and taking us into a new territory. So basically the first industrial, the steam power, the combustion engine, they helped us to extend our muscle power. The ICT helps us to extend our brain power.
Instead of a steam engine.
Well, basically this information technology revolution, what we saw before the Industrial Revolution, helped us to enhance our physical power with the help of engines.
You said muscle power.
Right, muscle power. And the ICT revolution actually helped us to develop our brain power. Not only by the access of information, but also by sharing information and by enabling us to collaborate much more intensively with people, and enabling us basically to create global networks. Without ICT technology, that would be very, very difficult to create a global supply chain, for example. We need the ICT component in order to manage that effectively. In the current ICT revolution, 8 of the 14 largest IT companies and 7 of the 10 largest internet companies worldwide are based in the US. So the US is leading the pack in this revolution. Now looking, okay, so this is very briefly about the Industrial Revolution. Now looking at GDP and economic growth. So GDP measurements, by Kuznets, an economist, is one of the great inventions of the 20th century. GDP gives an overall picture of the state of the economy. Without measures of economic aggregates like GDP, policymakers would be adrift in a sea of unorganized data. The GDP and the related data are like beacons that help policymakers to steer the economy towards the key economic objectives. So they're basically Kuznets, but we all know the Keynesian equation: GDP equals consumption plus investment, government spending, import, export. It all seems very, very simple, and it gives a good objective. So if the value of Y of GDP grows, then your economy grows. So it basically gives clear objectives and the clear instruments with which you can steer and measure the economy. But many aspects of the nation's economic well-being are difficult to measure. For example, positive caveats means like holes in our perception include lower search costs for information and goods, radical jumps in computing power at no extra cost, significant lower transaction costs for information search, and increases in educational attainment. So that's how do you measure that? How do you grasp that? How do you monetize that? The value of Google, for example. How do you estimate the value of internet? It's very difficult to grasp that and to reflect that value into a figure as the GDP.
Actually, this sentence means actually they reduce cost of company.
Yes, exactly. They reduce cost of company, but it's also accessible to people. It brings ideas to people. People are more empowered. They have a global. They can have a global reach if they want. They can be educated. They can. There are so many things that they can do, but it's not reflected in our GDP measurement.
By the way, for example, in Africa, in many cases, local farmers try to get drinking water.
Right.
Taking drinking water, they by man transport for a couple of hours, 1 hour.
Right.
Taking water.
Right.
And then different locations, all time goes by, they're switching from man to tank lorry.
Right.
And then getting improvement, but this it doesn't affect for GDP.
Right.
Right.
It doesn't affect GDP. Yeah, exactly. So that's a key. So we don't measure that. So the point here being is that we think that we have something that can grasp all the economic value, but the economy doesn't measure that. Basically, the fact that we can buy computers almost at the same price, but the computers can do twice as much as they can do last year or the year before that, because our processes have become faster. It doesn't mean that our computer companies are making a lot more money, but basically the consumers get a lot more value for their money. By the way, that drinking example was very interesting. This morning I saw something on the internet. A friend of mine, he speaking of innovation, a friend of mine, he sent me an email, and he's I met him in Japan. We met on a couple of occasions. He's now in the process of bringing devices to refugee camps.
What kind of device?
Device to extract water from the air.
Mm-hmm.
So he was a speaker at the World Economic Forum, and he's trying to basically raise money to bring these machines to refugee camps, because there is very often very difficult to access this kind of like clean water, and people sometimes need to buy water and they don't have any money. So to make water available to these people can mean a lot. So they installed the first machine, I believe, in Lebanon.